Hey everybody, welcome to my sixth how-to video for 2022. It's been a while since I did one of these. I had a bit of a scratchy throat, hence the big gap between this one and the last one, but I'm back and excited to give you another how-to video. Thank you to all the new subscribers who have joined the channel. I love how it's growing. Thank you so much for your support. Please do continue to like the videos, share them, comment, let me know what you think, share your thoughts with me. I love having the opportunity to engage with you post the point of posting the video. So let's continue the conversation even after you watch the video. And as always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do so. I really appreciate the support. Without further ado, let's jump straight into what today's how-to video is all about. And today I am going to be talking to you about how to create a testing plan. Love it, love it, love it. You guys love the how-to video on how to do a compliance risk assessment and have watched it, and it has probably the most views on this channel. And we will reference it a little bit because risk assessment is the process that you conduct before you jump into creating a testing plan. So the next logical step for me was to talk to you about how to create a testing plan, because that's what you need to do with the outcome of your risk assessment. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. But before we talk about how to create a testing plan, let's talk a little bit about why you need to do compliance testing in the first place. Compliance testing is a critical part of a compliance risk management program, because this is one of the tools that we use as compliance to make sure that we have line of sight and oversight over the control environment in a business. This is how we make sure that the controls that we think are in place, that the business says are in place, are actually being utilized and are in place and operating adequately and effectively to manage the risks that we have identified in our risk assessment process. So essentially, we are doing a health check on the business. What is going on, making sure that we know that everything is working as it should do to manage risk. Think about it this way. You go to the doctor. You go for an annual health wellness checkup, right? Where they check your blood pressure, maybe you have a mammogram or a prostate exam. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're feeling sick, but you are going to the doctor to make sure that everything is working as it should be, you're in good health, and then you can carry on with the business of the day. But at the same time, when you do feel sick and unwell, you know that something is wrong, so you go to a doctor for a checkup. And compliance testing works in the same way. You've got your compliance testing plan, which you create on an annual basis based on the outcomes of your risk assessment. And this is what you do your health check on, to make sure that everything is working as it should in terms of the control environment. But then sometimes things come up and you have to do a compliance test based on a reaction or a response to something that's going on. And we're going to touch on that as well in this video. So first, let's talk about your annual compliance testing plan. And that is going to be something that you put together as a result of the outcome of your risk assessment. So when you do a risk assessment, and be sure to watch the video if you haven't already, but when you do a risk assessment, you then analyze the risks that you have identified in your regulatory risk universe and rated them according to the likelihood of an event occurring and the impact of the event to your business if it does occur. And you have now established what your high risk items are, your medium risk items are, and your low risk items are. And obviously that is also within the context of your business's risk appetite. Now that you have identified and risk rated all your risks, and you've seen what's high risk, what's medium risk, what's low risk, you can take a risk-based approach in terms of creating your testing plan. And what we mean by a risk-based approach is that you are saying we are going to prioritize what is high risk in our business in terms of our focus, because capacity is limited. Even regulators understand that, and they say that the risk approach is the recommended approach in terms of choosing what to focus on and what to prioritize. So you are going to say, okay, what are our high risk items? What is going to have the biggest impact to our business if this thing happens, this risk event happens? And we need to make sure that we are doing a compliance test to ensure that the controls that are in place are effective enough to manage the risk. Or do we need more controls? Do we need to do something else to further mitigate that risk, to minimize the chance of this risk event occurring? So you're going to focus on your high risk items, and then capacity allowing, you can look at your high to medium, your medium risk items, and hopefully you don't have a million high risk items in your organization, which means that you can actually focus on things that might potentially not be as high risk, but still likely to have a big impact to your business if they do occur. So that is what we mean when we're talking about a risk-based approach in terms of extracting the results and outcomes and findings from your risk assessment process and putting them into a compliance testing plan to make sure that you are focusing your energy, your capacity, your resources on the high to medium risk items. Low risk items don't mean that you just throw them away and never look at them. It just means that in terms of prioritizing, they might not be focused. Maybe you're going to look at that. If something is consistently low risk, it means that maybe it might make it into your testing plan every so often, as opposed to be needing to be tested on an annual basis. But it's not something to be ignored. Or potentially you can look at if other functions are looking at them, maybe audit, and getting comfort from the fact that, okay, it's included in the scope of the audit plan, and therefore it's covered off in that respect. So a slightly different approach, less frequency, or getting comfort from other avenues in terms of your low risk items. So now you've looked at your risk assessment and extracted that information. It's in your testing plan. What are the other things that can trigger something being moved into a testing plan that wasn't part of the risk assessment process? I'm going to give you two things that could potentially find their way into your testing plan, or two items that can trigger something finding its way into your testing plan. The first thing we're going to look at is, let's say, a regulatory examination. So you've done your risk assessment process, and ergo 3 months afterwards, it's all done. The regulator has decided to come in and do a regulatory examination as a result of their, standard oversight obligations that they have in a market. They've come in and they've have some findings of their own, and potentially something that wasn't necessarily rated high risk or medium risk in your risk assessment process is something that they flagged for attention, or maybe they've said that they are not happy about the control environment around this particular thing. And it has obviously, as a result of the fact that it's been highlighted by the regulator, increased in terms of focus and attention that you need to be paying to it. And as a result, sometimes the findings that come out of a regulatory report, examination report, can be something that now needs to be lifted out of, maybe it was medium risk, and as a result of the finding, we're now rating it a high risk item, whatever the case may be, but it's triggered something to be added to your testing plan as a result of those findings. Second thing that can make something come up that wasn't in your testing plan and become added into your testing plan is topical issues. So for example, something has blown up in the market. Let's say there's a whole expose that has happened around market manipulation or insider trading. We've seen it happening. And now it's all topical headlines in the news. Everyone needs to be paying attention and figuring out what's happening within their own organizations. So even if your organization is not a named organization in terms of the scandal that's happening at the moment, it's definitely worthwhile to kind of take a look and see what's happening in your own back room and make sure that there's nothing that you need to be worried about. So if the regulator decides to come on board, do an ad hoc inspection or whatever the case may be as a result of this big scandal, you can be comfortable that actually our processes are in place, they're managing the type of risk. This is not occurring in our business, and these are the controls. And potentially if you need to strengthen the controls, then you put more controls in place to further mitigate the risk of your exposure to that kind of thing that has been identified as an issue occurring in the market. So it's really a sense for you to be proactive about assessing what's happening in your business in response to something that's happening in the market. And you can decide to do a compliance test to see how your controls are with respect to that. So this just goes to show, whether it's a regulatory examination or a topical issue, it just goes to show that your testing plan has to be dynamic. It's not okay, we've pulled these high risk and medium risk items out of our risk assessment report. Our testing plan is beautiful, and we put it in a drawer and start to just do tests, head down and do all the compliance tests. It has to be responsive to what is happening in the industry, to what is happening within your business. And if you need to make a change, if you need to deprioritize something and reprioritize something else because of things like topical issues happening in the industry, then that needs to happen as well. So your compliance plan is a dynamic document that responds to change and also takes obviously cognizance of the results of your risk assessment. So basically, you want to make sure that your business is healthy. From a compliance perspective, your control environment is strong, it's adequate, it's effective in terms of doing what it's supposed to do to manage risk. And you do that by having a compliance plan that is comprehensive, dynamic, and implementing that compliance plan. I hope you are comfortable. You've gained a lot more understanding of what we're talking about when we talk about, having to create a compliance plan, what you need to think about in terms of creating that compliance plan. And then, of course, there's the execution stage of the compliance plan when you're coming up with your methodology and, how are you actually going to do your compliance testing to get the most results and the best data to answer the question as to whether your controls are actually adequate and effective. But that's a conversation for another day, or potentially you can sign up for the compliance risk management, or not compliance risk management, the compliance practices workshop that I host every so often. The dates are always up on the website, and we look at not only the compliance risk assessment, but also the compliance oversight tools of monitoring and, of course, compliance testing, which is what I have been talking to you about today. Thank you so much for watching my video, for supporting my channel. I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments around, compliance testing. What is it that you consider when you're coming up with your compliance testing plan? If you have any questions, pop them in the comment section. I'll answer them as best as I possibly can. But other than that, thank you so much for your time and attention. And I look forward to sharing a lot more how-to videos with you in the future. And I'll try my best not to get sick and have another big gap between this and the next video. But other than that, have a great day, guys.